Now let's take you to this discussion now as we count down to the G20 Summit in South Africa. The Department of International Relations is hosting the G20 Presidency Outreach Program in Abuja in Nigeria. Now this will be the first time Africa is hosting the G20. This comes at a time where the AU is now a full member of G20. For more, we cross now live to DIRCO Acting Chief Director for Regional Organizations, Ben Joubert in Abuja. A very good evening to you, sir, and thank you so much for your time. So how important then is this meeting in Abuja? I mean, what does this mean for Africa's influence on global decision-making? And how does, more importantly, South Africa's presidency ensure, that this becomes not just a G20 on African soil, but a truly African G20?
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening to everyone. Yes, of course, this is very important from a substantive point of view, and also in terms of our President Cyril Ramaphosa's original commitment to Africa when we first announced that we will host the G20 Summit of leaders for the first time on the African continent. So both in terms of that promise and in terms of the issues that we will discuss today here that we will discuss in the event tomorrow on industrialization, on agriculture, those issues are extremely important to us. As you would know, one of the high-level deliverables that we have in our G20 presidency speaks to the issue of food security. So this links in very closely to the issues that are dear to the continent, to Africa: food security, sustainable finance or debt sustainability. All those issues are important, and this outreach to Abuja, to Nigeria, as an invited country during our G20 presidency is therefore extremely important to us.
Yeah, I would imagine. I want to just touch on the geopolitics that we're seeing. I mean, there are reports now that the United States has not endorsed several of the resolutions emerging from the G20 working groups. How significant do you think that is, the lack of consensus, and does it risk undermining the unity of, purpose South Africa is trying to build? I would imagine that also, just on another point, that as DIRCO, just speaking about the United States, you're also monitoring reports that the U.S. has, threatened possible military action amid ongoing tensions and violence on the religion front in Nigeria.
Yes, I think the presidency that we are having this year, or that we are holding of the G20, is, of course, during a time of significant geopolitical shifts and challenges. For us, that is, of course, nothing new, given how we worked on our democracy in the early 90s. So in this year, I think South Africa is the ideal country to be presiding over the G20 group. That said, we are very committed to an ambitious document. We are very committed to a successful leaders summit, and we are working extremely hard to get the US completely on board of our presidency. So there's a lot of work taking place. The G20 and many other regional blocs and formations of the world are, of course, much bigger than one country alone. So this is hard work for us, and we remain very committed and very positive about an ambitious document in the summit coming up, and of course the successful and constructive support and participation of the US amongst the other G20 members.
All right, Mr. Joubert, let's leave it there for now. I would imagine that we will hear of those outcomes in the Leaders Summit in November. Thank you so much for your time. That is DIRCO's Acting Chief Director for Regional Organizations, speaking to us live there from Abuja, Mr. Ben Joubert.